What if I told you the guy behind one of the most iconic R&B monologues of all time got completely screwed by the very people who were supposed to be his friends? One hit. That's all it took. The Rain by Oran Juice Jones didn't just top the charts, it owned them. And with lines like, "I missed you so much I followed you today, close your mouth 'cause you cold busted," the song turned heartbreak into poetic, petty gold. But here's the wild part. After that legendary track, poof, Juice vanished. So what happened? Why did someone with such undeniable talent disappear right when he should have been exploding? Was it the label? Was it shady contracts? Or was Juice his own worst enemy? Stick around, because we're diving into a twisted tale of backstabbing, broken promises, flashy coats, and the music industry's favorite game: chew 'em up and spit 'em out. Most people think Oran Juice Jones was just some smooth-talking, one-hit wonder who lucked into fame with The Rain, and then faded away because he didn't have anything else to offer. That's the misconception. They'll say, "Oh yeah, Juice, he had that one song with the crazy monologue," then disappeared. But that's not the full story. Not even close. See, Juice wasn't some amateur who stumbled into the spotlight. He was handpicked by Russell Simmons, signed as the first ever R&B artist on Def Jam's new sub-label OBR, Original Black Recordings. That's right, Juice was supposed to be Def Jam's golden R&B ticket. At a time when hip-hop was exploding, Def Jam wanted to stake their claim in R&B too, and Juice was the guy they believed in. But what did they give him? A confusing setup that almost guaranteed failure. Juice was signed to OBR, which was owned by Def Jam, but also managed by Rush Management, which, surprise, was also owned by Russell Simmons. That's a massive conflict of interest. Who's looking out for the artist when the label and the manager are the same person? And Juice didn't realize that at first. He was new to the business, hungry, trying to get his foot in the door. So when Russell told him, "Just hang around, it'll be fun," he trusted him. That trust would cost him, because while the world was falling in love with The Rain, Juice had no idea that the machine behind him was more focused on using him as a test case than building a long-term career. The misconception? People think Juice faded because he couldn't follow up. But the truth is, he never had a fair shot in the first place. Let's be real. The Rain wasn't just a hit, it was a whole moment. The song was dramatic, funny, emotional, and low-key theatrical. Juice wasn't just singing, he was performing a whole breakup scene with quotes that fans still shout word for word almost 40 years later. And that monologue? "You cold busted. I ain't want to mess up this 3,700 links coat." Iconic. But here's the catch. The very thing that made Juice unforgettable is exactly what trapped him. The industry pigeonholed him. They didn't see an artist with range or vision. They saw a gimmick, a walking character, a pimp R&B singer they could plug into one album, one video, one hit, and then move on. And it gets worse. Juice rewrote The Rain. Lyrics, melodies, the whole vibe. That wasn't handed to him by some hitmaker. He crafted it himself. But when he asked Russell Simmons to support the creative overhaul, Russell basically said, "Cool, but we're out of budget. Pay for it yourself," and Juice did. So imagine, your breakout hit is a song you reworked, paid for, poured your truth into, and the label? They take the shine while you get a thank you and a side eye. That's not artist development, that's artist exploitation. And when Juice tried to follow up, the same people who hyped him for being unique now didn't know what to do with him unless he copied the same formula. He was never meant to evolve. He was meant to be used once, sold as a novelty, and quietly shelved. Because when a label controls your image, your money, and your management, you don't get to grow. You get boxed in. Juice wasn't just a one-hit wonder. He was set up to be one. Now here's where things start smelling real funny. Russell Simmons didn't just discover Oran Juice Jones. He controlled everything around him. Think about it. Juice was signed to OBR, a Def Jam imprint, but his management was also handled by Rush Management, which just so happened to be owned by Russell Simmons too. That's like being in a relationship where your partner is also your therapist, your landlord, and your bank. No matter where you turn, they control the outcome. Juice didn't understand this at the time. He was just trying to break into the business and trusted Russell's hype. Simmons told him to hang around, get in the mix, maybe even write for others. Juice did just that. But when he wrote Daydreamin' for Curtis Blow, who was also part of Russell's inner circle, he barely got paid. In Juice's words, "My money was funny," meaning the check didn't match the work. But by then, he was already roped in. Russell's next move? Tell Juice If you're this mad about not getting paid, make your own music. Translation: you're not making me money fast enough. Go be useful. So Juice started creating, grinding, and eventually dropped The Rain, a song so strong it practically created a genre of its own. But again, let's zoom out. Here's this young artist, dropped into a corporate machine where the same guy signs your checks, manages your image, controls your bookings, and sets your studio budget. There's zero accountability, and if something goes wrong, there's no one to advocate for you. You're just another cog in Russell's empire. Juice himself would later say Russell Simmons cheated him out of every penny he ever made. And yet, they're still cool to this day? That's the twisted part. It's the kind of friendship where loyalty is expected, but reciprocity never arrives. And Juice, coming from the streets of Harlem, probably saw this dynamic as normal. But let's call it what it was. He was a pawn in a much bigger game. The Rain was more than a hit. It was a whole cinematic experience packed into a 4-minute track. The beat was haunting, the delivery was dramatic, and the monologue, straight up unforgettable. Juice turned a messy breakup into soap opera gold, laced with wit, heartbreak, and straight clownery. And let's be honest, that monologue at the end, that was the original viral moment, before viral was even a thing. You cold busted? I ain't want to mess up this $3,700 Lynx coat. You without me is like cornflakes without the milk? Legendary. But here's where it backfired. That moment was so iconic, so over the top, it boxed Juice into a character, a parody, the pimped-out petty R&B guy. And while that lane worked for one hit, the industry didn't know how to handle him beyond that. They didn't know what else to do with him. Instead of building a long-term image, Def Jam and OBR treated Juice like a novelty. One hit, some laughs, some buzz, and then crickets. His follow-up album GTO, Gangsters Taken Over, dropped in 1987 and flopped hard. The single Cold Spending My Money barely scraped the charts. Why? Because the label didn't push it. They wanted the Rain part, too, and Juice, trying to show growth, gave them something different. But instead of support, he got silence. By the time his third album, To Be Immortal, came out in 1989, it was like he never existed. No promo, no push, and not a single song charted. The industry moved on. Juice was a meme before memes, and the label, already scouting the next hot act. Even with The Rain being Def Jam's first ever R&B hit, Juice got zero credit for opening the door for future artists. It was like he was never there. So, yeah, The Rain made him, but it also became the shiny trap that froze his career in time. So let's talk about the part nobody wants to admit. Juice didn't fall off because he got lazy. He fell off because the industry left him to rot. After The Rain, Juice was expected to do what most artists do after a big debut: evolve. Building pushed the sound forward, and he tried. His second album, GTO, Gangsters Taken Over, in 1987, aimed to expand his sound, show more of his streetwise edge. But there was a problem. No marketing, no support, no budget. It's like Def Jam said, if it ain't The Rain 2.0, we're not spending a dime. Cold Spending My Money was the lead single. Ironic title, right? And it barely touched the R&B charts. Not because the song was trash, but because nobody pushed it. It was buried before it had a chance. And without the Def Jam machine behind him, Juice was just a guy with a mic and a shadow of his own success. Then came To Be Immortal in 1989, and if GTO got ignored, this one got flat out ghosted. The entire album came and went without a single chart appearance. No airplay, no video, no press, just silence. And Juice? He felt it. According to him, the label had no interest in developing a career. They wanted lightning in a bottle, a gimmick they could milk once and move on. So what do you do when the door that made you famous also locks you out? You try to make a comeback, which he did, 8 years later, on a totally different label, Tommy Boy Records. The album was called Players Call and dropped in the UK in 1997. Guess what? It flopped again, even with legendary producer Willie Mitchell behind the boards. In fact, it flopped so hard, it didn't even get released in the US until 2007, 10 years later. Think about that. Your comeback album was so slept on, your own country didn't even know it existed for a whole decade. That's not a coincidence. That's a career slowly being erased. By now, it's pretty clear that Oran Juice Jones didn't just fall through the cracks, he was pushed. But let's talk about the part that hurts the most, the money, or rather, the lack of it. Despite The Rain being a platinum smash, Juice didn't walk away rich. In fact, years later, he openly admitted he never got what he was owed, and he didn't hold back when placing blame. His exact words? Russell Simmons cheated me out of every penny I ever had. Every penny. Now pause. That's not industry beef. That's a man reflecting on a whole career built on one song that made everybody else money while he got crumbs. And yet somehow, he still calls Russell a friend? If that ain't the most toxic brotherhood in music history, I don't know what is. Juice would later say that the advances from Def Jam were just for creating the illusion. You were supposed to use that money to look rich, sound rich, feel rich, but never be rich. And once the shine faded, so did the checks. Even worse, Juice says he didn't understand contracts back then. He didn't know what he signed. And when you're being managed by the same people who sign your label deal, you're not being managed, you're being monetized. By the time his album stopped selling, the labels had moved on. The spotlight dimmed, the money dried up, and Juice? He was left with memories of a hit that made him a legend, but left him broke. And the irony? The Rain is still streamed, quoted, sampled, and played on throwback stations across the country. People are still eating off that song. Just not him. Juice had talent. He had vision. But what he didn't have? Protection. So, where's Juice now? As of 2025, Oran Juice Jones is still alive, still married, and quietly living life away from the spotlight that once made and broke him. He's a father of 7 children, and a few of them are stepping into the very business that chewed him up. His son, Oran II, once known as Mookie Jones, tried his hand at rapping, while his daughter, Perry Jones, has been pushing into R&B on her own terms. And guess who's helping them behind the scenes? Juice himself. Yep. Despite everything, he's still in the game, just not of it. He's mentoring, guiding, and protecting his kids from the same predatory maze he never got a map for. You get the sense that his legacy now lives through them, and he's determined not to let the same mistakes repeat. But the industry? Still weirdly silent. Even after all these years, Juice has never received the flowers he truly deserves. No honorary BT tribute. No unsung episode. Just that one song, that one moment, frozen in time. It's like the culture respects the line delivery, but not the man behind the mic. That's what makes his story so frustrating. Juice kicked open the door for R&B artists at Def Jam, laid the foundation for the fusion of streetwise storytelling and soul music, and gave us one of the most iconic breakup songs of all time. And yet, the industry keeps his name in the vault, like a footnote. As for his net worth, depending on which dusty corners of the internet you check, estimates place it somewhere between $300,000 and $700,000. But let's be honest, most of that isn't from record sales. It's probably from touring small venues, royalties from The Rain, and side work behind the scenes. But money aside, Oran Juice Jones will always be remembered as the man who flipped heartbreak into theater. He was raw, original, and unapologetically himself. The truth is, he never really left. He just wasn't allowed to stay. Here's the thing most people miss about Oran Juice Jones. He wasn't a one-hit wonder. He was a one-chance wonder. He got one shot, one song, one budget, one brief moment where the industry actually looked his way, and instead of building him up, they squeezed the juice, pocketed the profits, and left him dry. He made Def Jam R&B before Def Jam even believed in R&B. He delivered a hit that shaped a generation, and in return, he got stories, scars, and maybe, just maybe, a little peace in 2025. But if there's one thing we should remember, never confuse industry failure with artistic failure. Juice didn't fall off, he was pushed.